Well, hi there, crafters. Amy here with Amy's Wares, and today I have a You Are So Loved card that I'm going to make for you today. So I have this charming floral wreath stamp set from Pinkfresh Studio. I have a die cut panel that was cut from a die cut rectangle die, and here's a photo of the finished card to show you the direction that we're headed. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all. This did not go as planned whatsoever. Now, I don't usually have a plan, but I have a general idea, and my general idea did not happen. I'm going to show you why. So I'm sitting there thinking, ooh, I'm just going to stamp the outline of this floral, and then I'll do the, fill-in portion with some layered stamping, and I'll just flip this over and make a wreath, and it's going to be great. Not well thought out at all, nor did I even pay attention to the stamp set, because I'll show you in a moment why this didn't work. So I stamped this, first of all, with a really thick black pigment ink. This is VersaFine Clair Nocturne. I stamp it a couple times. Now this stuff stays wet a long time, so beware. First thing I'm thinking is, ooh, I'm going to flip this over and just make a wreath real quick. Well, yeah, not well thought out at all. So first of all, I'm going to have to move this to line it up better, which is not ideal because I was like, oh, well, how's that going to work when I bring in the layered stamps? It's not going to line up. It's going to be a mess. Whatever. I just keep going. So I make a wreath, sort of, in this card. In that first step didn't go as planned. But I'm going to stamp this a couple times, try not to get ink all over. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use my little Catherine Pooler Pretty Colors. I'm going to fill it in. So I'm sitting here looking for layering stamps, going to line it up, and then looking at it like, wait a minute. This is completely different flowers. So looking at the packaging, trying to figure out where I went wrong, and yeah, that's not how it's designed at all. So there's outline layers, and then there's layered stamps, which are totally different flowers. So now I'm thinking, great, how am I going to color this? Because I stamped it on regular cardstock, which means that I can't really, use water brush pens, and I can't use Copics because I used pigment ink, and that solvent is going to get messed up by the Copics. So then I remembered, aha, I have these gorgeous cheap markers from Altenew, and they were perfect. So these are water-based. I'm not really trying to blend them around like my water brush pens, like your Zigs or your Arteza or whatever. But I'm basically just using them like old school markers. You can kind of blend them a little bit together like I'm doing here, but this was so fun, you guys. Like, this happy little accident warranted me just coloring kind of like a kid would if you give them some markers. So these are obviously nicer than like kid markers because they're not like Crayolas, but they're kind of simple like Crayolas, right? Like you can add water to them on the right kind of paper. Like if you had watercolor paper, if you had Bristol Smooth with coating or whatever, you can move them around a little bit with water, kind of like water brush pens, but at its head like this, I'm just legit coloring in with some very simple markers. I'm not worrying about blending or getting too crazy, and this was so fun. So, happy little accident. Got to use my new Altenew markers here. Did bring in a little bit of variation in color, but again, no simple coloring or anything like that. So it was really super fun. Came together quickly, and it was a way to still use this. Oh, and it doesn't really leak to the back like a Copic would, because that's another thing you have to worry about. So if I would have stamped this directly on the card base, then I would have had to worry about, the ink bleeding through to the other side. So these markers are legit. They're very fun, gorgeous Altenew colors. And I'm really glad I added them to my crafty stash. So that was how I remedied this train wreck of a card. Now I make some more mistakes here. I'm going to show you. I'm thinking like, oh, I want to bring in these colors and not have a white border. So I just kind of start scribbling in some color, and I'm thinking I'm going to make that the border. And I just have a little piece of scrap paper sandwiched in here so that I don't get ink, on the back side of the card base, because I am working right on the card base. Just using some of the colors that I used to fill in the blooms and just kind of scribbling down. It was fun. But this is where it looks like little kid markers. I'm not going to lie. You can see all these streaks. Didn't look great. Not going to use it. So try something else. I grabbed some blue lightweight cardstock from my stash. This was probably out of a scrap folder, honestly. Decided to use kind of the blue color that I used on the coloring. Thought maybe I could make it work there. But again, nope. This is going in my scrap That's going to go in my scrap folder. I'll find another way to use that cardstock. But basically grabbed a new card base. I'm going to pop up this panel. This was also, I didn't explain this before, but that really cool deckled edge as well as that polka dot blue layer that I cut. Those are both from a die cutting set from Altenew, which is absolutely gorgeous and I love it. And I'll link that below with all the other products. But I popped up that center layer. I flat stuck down the blue panel to the card base, and now I just need to figure out how I'm going to finish the card. So flipping through my sentiment book here, I'm not thinking I have anything that's really going to fit in that frame the way that I'm intending. I think I'm initially going to check out these Pinkfresh ones to see if any of these work color-wise or size-wise, and they don't really work, so I kind of quickly abandoned that idea. But I do still keep flipping just to make sure there's something I didn't miss. Got lots of varieties, all different sizes here. But ultimately, as you saw, I did end up going with a Tailored Expression Simple Strip. These are their storage boxes. They're brilliant. If you aren't familiar, you get a stamp that will stamp like multiple sentiments at once. You get a coordinating die that cuts them all out at once, and then you can also buy these optional storage boxes, which are genius and are my absolute favorite from Tailored Expression. So I'm just going to liquid glue one of them right down to the front of the card. It's kind of a almost matching cardstock, not exact, but close enough. It says "You are loved," and then a note to make you smile for the inside of the card. So I'm just making sure this is nice and centered, but it fit really well in my makeshift wreath, which ended up working somehow. Just going to liquid glue that down, and that's going to finish the card after I put some blingage on. So I've got some white iridescent sequins. I'm going to put them down in a little smattering with some liquid glue in my jewel picker tool, and that's it. So I made it work. Didn't go as planned. Got a little derailed, but yeah, just look through your crafty stash. Don't bin it. Just come up with a way. I'm sure you've got something in your stash you can use to remedy a situation when it doesn't go as planned. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'll link everything below that's available, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.